What happens when an arrogant judge puts a girl's mother in jail for a minor infraction, only to be confronted by the daughter with an unexpected demand? You won't believe how a simple request changes the dynamics in the courtroom forever. In the small, bustling town of Maplewood, where life moved at a pace that allowed its residents to savor the little things, there lived a judge known for his shrewdness and strict adherence to the law, Judge Leonard Hargrove. With a reputation for being unforgivingly tough, he ruled the courtroom with an iron fist, instilling fear in the hearts of defendants and lawyers alike. His motto was simple: obey the law or pay the price. One sunny afternoon, a case came before him that would unwittingly challenge his assumptions and reveal the cracks in his authoritative facade. The case involved Allison Gray, a single mother struggling to make ends meet. After losing her job, Allison had inadvertently forgotten a court date related to a minor traffic violation. Judge Hargrove, seeing this as a flagrant disrespect of the law, felt justified in handing down a hefty sentence. "You've wasted my time, Miss Gray," he thundered, glaring down at her from the elevated bench. "Considering your negligence, I am sentencing you to 3 days in jail." Allison's heart sank, desperation flashing through her eyes as she glanced at her daughter Emma, who sat weeping quietly in the gallery. "Your Honor, please, I have no one to take care of my daughter. This isn't fair," she pleaded, her voice shaky but resolute. "You should have thought about that before flouting the law. Court is in session for a reason, and justice must be served." With that, he banged his gavel, sealing Allison's fate. As the court adjourned, a storm brewed within Emma. This was no ordinary day of injustice. It was the day her mother had been wronged. Only 12 years old, she had seen too much of life's unfairness already. But this felt different. Emma knew her mother was trying, barely hanging on. She felt like giving up, but she wouldn't. Instead, she decided to take action. That night, as she sat in her room, the weight of her mother's situation pressed heavily on her heart. Emma thought of the long nights her mother had worked, the sacrifices she had made to provide for them. She thought about the small victories they celebrated, like the time her mother managed to save enough to buy them a new pair of shoes. These memories fueled her resolve. Emma couldn't let her mother suffer because of a simple mistake. Determined to confront the judge, Emma returned the following day, clutching a stack of worn textbooks she'd collected from home. Friends at school often saw her as quiet and studious, but they didn't know the fire that burned within her. She calmly approached the court clerk and said, "I need to see Judge Hargrove." Once inside the courtroom, the air felt charged. Emma stood in front of the judge, her heart racing, but she maintained her composure. The judge looked down, clearly perplexed by the sight of a young girl standing defiantly before him. "What are you doing here?" Judge Hargrove demanded, an eyebrow raised. "I'm here for my mother," Emma declared boldly, her words ringing out with resolve. "You put her in jail for nothing, and I'm demanding justice." Judge Hargrove crossed his arms, bemusement evident on his face. "And what do you think you can do about it? This is a court of law, and I advise you to tread carefully." Emma took a deep breath, summoning her courage. "I brought you something, my homework," she announced, holding up the textbooks. The courtroom erupted in whispers as the judge's confusion morphed into irritation. "Your homework? Do I look like a teacher? I don't have time for this nonsense," he replied dismissively. But Emma pressed on, undeterred. "You do have time, Your Honor, time to do my homework from now on. If you can't let my mother out of jail because of your harsh ruling, then you should at least help me with the things she usually helps me with." The audacity of her words left the room speechless. Judges were meant to be untouchable and above reproach, yet here stood this girl daring to challenge authority in the most innocent yet profound way. Emma continued, undaunted by the weight of the setting. "I can't do my homework properly without my mom," she explained. "She isn't here to help me. So if you believe in punishing people like she's been punished, then it seems only fair that you should take over that responsibility." Judge Hargrove's eyes narrowed, irritation blossoming into amusement. "You expect me to complete your homework? For every child means something different, and your mother needs to learn the law. That's why she's in jail." But Emma, with fire in her heart, wasn't interested in backing down. "Mr. Hargrove," she began, addressing him directly, Being a judge means understanding that the law isn't always just. Justice should consider people's circumstances. My mother didn't deserve this, and helping me with my homework won't change your role, but it might open your eyes to the consequences of your decisions. For a moment, surprise held Judge Hargrove captive, his expression wavering as Emma's earnest words settled into his thoughts. It was rare for him to hear such a considered perspective from any let alone a young girl. "Fine," he said, almost amused. "I'll humor you, but if you expect me to do your homework, you better make it worth my while." Emma's heart raced with a mix of triumph and nerves. She gathered her wits and nodded. "Let's see then. Let's start with my math homework." And so began an unusual arrangement. Every day after court, Emma would meet with Judge Hargrove in a smaller chamber just off the main courtroom. While he was initially reluctant, he soon became aware that this engagement was more than merely academic. The first few days revolved around math problems, fractions, long division, and word problems that twisted logic in unusual ways. Emma explained concepts to him that he had long forgotten. "You know, this isn't as easy as I remember," he admitted, scratching his head over an especially tricky question. Emma, eyes sparkling with enthusiasm, replied, "It gets easier with practice, just like the law. You've got to look for solutions outside your usual perspective." As they transitioned from math to history, events that shaped their nation, Emma began to weave insights from her life into their discussions. They explored topics like civil rights and fairness, discussing how the judicial system had evolved and what it meant to serve justice both in theory and in practice. One day, during a discussion about historical injustices, Emma asked pointedly, "How can anyone consider themselves a true judge if they don't empathize with the people they govern?" Her gaze was piercing, forcing him to reflect. "Empathy is crucial, but law is absolute," he retorted defensively. Yet, even as he spoke, he could feel the resonance of truth in her words. He began to question his approach not just as a judge, but as a person. With each session, the range of topics expanded. They discussed ethics, morality, and the delicate balance of justice and mercy. Judge Hargrove experienced a gradual awakening, realizing that the rigidity he previously admired was perhaps a flaw in his character. One chilly afternoon, as they worked through a difficult social studies assignment, Emma looked up and said, "You know what I think? A great judge should be someone who understands not just the law, but the people affected by it." Hargrove looked thoughtful. "You might be onto something there. Justice shouldn't just punish, it should also rehabilitate and heal." Their sessions became a highlight of his day. Emma, despite her youth, skillfully challenged him while helping herself understand complex subjects. It was as if their lives were intertwined, her personal fight for her mother's dignity, and his quest to be seen as more than a mere enforcer of the law. "Do you ever wonder what people think when you sentence them?" Emma asked during of those sessions. "I mean, do you think they feel you understand them?" "That's complicated," he answered slowly. "Some I do understand. Others you don't even try to understand." Emma finished for him, her voice calm yet firm. He nodded, realizing she spoke the truth. Eventually, the notion of sentencing someone without understanding their story weighed heavily on his conscience. It became evident that Emma was learning and growing, but so too was he. His role in the courtroom began to feel less like a judge and more like a mentor, navigating the complex landscape of young minds searching for answers. As the weeks turned into a month, Hargrove found himself preparing for Allison's case again. Emma had made significant strides in her learning, and their discussions had emboldened him to reconsider the nature of justice. While he had not planned on changing his ruling, he was compelled to reflect. One day, during a particularly introspective moment, Hargrove admitted, "You've opened my eyes to the importance of seeing the bigger picture." He swept his hand through his hair, lost in thought. "You must understand, your mother made choices that led her here." Emma nodded solemnly. "But so do we all. Isn't part of your job to help people learn from their mistakes instead of punishing them forever?" "That's the crux of it, isn't it?" Hargrove replied. "If we merely punish, we're just reinforcing failure. Perhaps we should offer a way to lift them back up." Finally, the day arrived. As they entered the courtroom, Emma felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. Would the judge act on what they had been discussing? Seated in the gallery, She felt the anticipation surge through her as Judge Hargrove prepared to speak. His lips moved into a slight smile, a sign that he had come to an understanding. "Today," he began, addressing the full gallery, "we are not just deciding on Miss Gray's fate. We are exploring the implications of justice in our community." He paused, turning to Emma, who sat proudly beneath his gaze. "I have spent considerable time re-evaluating my position, driven by a remarkable young girl sitting here in this courtroom." All eyes turned to Emma, her heart racing at the attention but filled with hope. "Your Honor," he continued, "I have come to realize that justice is not simply about enforcing laws. It is about understanding the individuals who find themselves in our system. Miss Gray may have made a mistaken oversight that led her to this point, but the punishment should not overshadow her desire to raise her daughter with dignity." The audience held their breath, Emma feeling a strong surge of hope alongside her mother's evident relief. "Therefore, I am releasing Miss Gray from her sentence, but will impose community service instead. We will help her connect with the resources to ensure she can continue to care for her daughter while learning essential skills." Cheers erupted from the spectators, tears of joy streaming down Allison's cheeks as Emma rushed into her mother's arms. "You did it! You fought for me!" she exclaimed. "Yes, but it was also the judge," Emma replied, glancing back at Hargrove, who radiated a warmth he hadn't shown before. Over the next few weeks, Maplewood felt a palpable shift in the community. The town saw the establishment of outreach programs aimed at supporting those in precarious situations, highlighting the importance of rehabilitation over punishment. Emma and Judge Hargrove organized workshops where community members shared their stories, emphasizing the lessons learned through adversity. While Emma continued to grow into an advocate for justice, she also excelled in her studies, forming friendships and building confidence. Hargrove, inspired by her journey, often invited her to give talks about the importance of empathy and justice. The two of them developed a mentorship that transcended the roles they initially assumed. Years later, during a local town hall meeting, Emma took a moment to reflect on the journey that had shaped her life. She stood confidently at the podium, her heart pounding with excitement. "When I stepped into that courtroom to confront Judge Hargrove, I didn't expect the impact it would have not only on my family but on our entire community," she began. "I learned that justice is not merely about rules. It's about understanding and compassion. It's about being willing to listen, to see the people behind the cases, and to offer second chances," she went on, her voice strong. "We can reshape our community through kindness and wisdom." As the audience erupted into applause, Emma and Judge Hargrove exchanged a proud glance, realizing how far they had come together on this shared mission. From that day forward, their partnership became a beacon of hope in Maplewood, establishing a legacy of compassion and collaboration that would echo through generations. Judge Hargrove had not only transformed as a judge, but had also become a person of principle, dedicating his time to uplifting others rather than simply enforcing the law. Emma continued her journey, pursuing a career in law fueled by her passion for justice. She eventually returned to Maplewood as an attorney, eager to fight for those who felt oppressed and unheard. And Judge Hargrove, now an esteemed figure known for his fairness, mentored many young lawyers, ensuring that empathy remained at the forefront of his courtroom. Their story remains etched in the history of Maplewood, a testimony to the incredible power of voice, compassion, and the remarkable change that can occur when individuals dare to confront injustice.